Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy on a given Wednesday. And we have Mark Glick, who is our principal guest here, and he's the administrator of the State Energy Office here in DBED. And Leslie Wilkins joins us from the Maui Economic Development Board, and she's also the chair of the Workforce Development Council of the Department of Labor. And we're calling, I get that right?
This whole state, yes.
Yeah, and that's Sharon Moriwaki, and next to Sharon is Ray Starling. Okay, and we're going to talk about building a clean energy workforce today. It's a very important topic. However, before we start, in lieu of our customary negawatt moment, we have a special report from our special investigative journalist, Ray Starling, who has been following closely the adventures of the solar impulse. Ray, take it away.
All right. Well, for all you junkies out there who love smart grid and efficiency stuff, mostly engineers, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that what came through here over the last year and left us just a couple of weeks ago, the Solar Impulse 2, made its trip to San Francisco. That was part of a grand project that's been going on that's very much related to what we're trying to do here in Hawaii with energy. The grid, the smart grid, efficiency, all the pieces that come together, renewable energy, come together in this Solar Impulse 2. And I commend you to, if you're interested at all in understanding what we're trying to do here in Hawaii with efficiency and renewable energy, the Solar Impulse 2 shows you what can be done. It is being done. It's not like a figment in the sky. It is truly a thing to watch to see where we're going with the energy situation here in Hawaii. There are 2 pilots flying each leg one at a time. And the pilots actually have to control this solar plane that flies only on sunlight. So it has to charge up during the day when the sun is out, and it has to actually work like a smart grid at night by storing in batteries the power and also climbing to an altitude so they can, when they get up to about 30,000 feet, they can start a slow glide down and actually cause the energy situation to last them until the sun comes up the next morning.
It's another way of storing, isn't it? Because the altitude.
Yes, it's potential energy, and they turn it into kinetic energy coming down, but they also need a little extra boost, so they have batteries. But the most important thing is there's absolutely no fuel at all, no fossil fuel or no fuel of any kind other than sunlight that makes this airplane fly. And you can see a lot of good, interesting technical issues and also physiological issues that the pilots have to go through in order to make these flights on solarimpulse.com. And I commend you and your viewers to go take a look at that, because it is it's really astounding. And for anybody who says we cannot do smart grid here in Hawaii, that is just telling you that that's not the case. That in reality, all you have to do is have an intent and an urge to go out and do it, and you can do it. The technology is there. And they're proving it. So hats off to Andre Borschberg, who was one of the pilots, and Bertrand Piccard. The Piccard family goes way back as explorers. Piccard's father was the one that went to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and his grandfather was the first to fly a high altitude balloon above certain level. I'm not sure how high he went.
Perfect.
But it's just a great metaphor for what we're trying to do here in Hawaii, and I commend that to all of your viewers.
Ray, I have a recurrent dream about all of this. I want to tell you about it. My dream is that at 2 o'clock in the morning, as you are wont to do, you and your team at Hawaii Energy goes down to that plane and you look over it from your point of view with that special creative thing you do, and you find additional efficiencies that those guys never thought of yet, and you help them out. What do you think?
Well, maybe so. That'd be nice. Only the plane is already in Phoenix, and we'll have to catch it the next time around.
So
Okay.
does it just keep going and going, or does it have to stop after a certain
Well,
amount
it
of
stops,
time?
but it's mainly
They don't have to.
it's mainly for the crew. The plane is so efficient that it's really unstable. A regular airplane is pretty stable if you don't try to do anything with it. You just let it fly. It'll fly along. But this plane doesn't fly along without either an autopilot or the pilot himself piloting the plane. And so if you just let it go, there's just a few brief moments before it will become unstable and go into a spin. But that's because they make it super efficient. So you have some give and take there. So the pilots can only fly, or they can only sleep for about 20 minutes. So even on those 5-day trips from Nagoya to here, 5 days, every 20-minute nap, and that was it. And then you'd work for a few hours and then another 20-minute nap. And so but they did it. They put it together in such a way, just like we can do a smart grid here. It won't be exactly like flying the airplane, but providing 100% renewable energy. And even when the sun goes down and that renewable energy goes away, you can store enough energy to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And so that's the message that you get. It's here, it's today. They're going to make that trip completely around the world, and it'll be like the Lindbergh trip, the first time ever.
Yeah.
And then we'll start seeing planes that'll do that on a recurring
Right.
basis.
It's the first time, and they're in creative mode. They will improve it. Next time we look, it'll be much more efficient, and after a while, it'll actually be capable of commercialization.
Commercialized.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, thank you for that special report, Ray.
Glad to do it.
Let's go to our principal subject, which is building a clean energy workforce, bridging the gap.
Building.
Mark, you had some remarks, some points you wanted to make. Why don't you start?
Well, first, it's a great segue, Ray's update about the Solar Impulse 2. Innovation is one of the key components of driving a new economic sector in the state. And innovation, we know about it, of course, in broadband and health and building materials, but energy is really going to be, I think, the driving force for any economic growth in the state, because we know that tourism has a limited amount of headroom. I mean, it's still going to be an important part of the economy. We have government spending, particularly in defense, but in terms of a real growth opportunity, clean energy provides that, energy efficiency measures, all of that's related to our energy sector. And today, we're going to talk about what are some of those impacts. We've measured some of those impacts, and we've seen what's happened throughout the United States. And this story is running true for all of the U.S.
Well, so we have great potential here, huge potential. We've come away, people know about us. We have a certain self-awareness of our potential. We have a certain high level of penetration by PV and other renewables. And the question before the House is, do we need to have a special workforce? How will a special workforce benefit us? How will it be, created? How will it be best capitalized and created? And what will it do in the long term? In other words, if we build a big workforce, is it going to be sustainable over a long period of time, or will it become unnecessary as we get closer to our goal in 2045?
Well, it's definitely going to evolve, and I think it'd be very difficult for you to estimate that there will be a certain type of job that will sustain itself throughout the revolution, because the cycles are so short now. But certainly when we look at, we look and we measure construction expenditures, for example, and we know that in the area of photovoltaics, those installations have created a lion's share of the new jobs. But they're mostly in these construction areas that are pretty well defined already. And among construction, carpenters, electricians, and the like. And so the areas of specialization are coming through more vocational type workforce development and not sort of these 4-year degrees or these highly specialized degrees. But as
the unions are up on this. They want this.
Extremely on top of it, and they've been huge supporters of this effort. And just to give you a sense, I mean, the solar growth that has already occurred in the state, in 2015, it amounted to $570 million. And that was roughly 14% of all of the new construction expenditures in the state. It reached a peak in 2012 of nearly 28.5% of all construction expenditures in the state. Can we expect, as we continue to have more rooftop solar and other types of solar, we expect to see those numbers be strong for the next 10 to 20 years, because we really expect solar and solar replacements to be a big part of the picture.
Solar replacements. That goes to the whole, sustainability issue. It's
Right.
not just putting solar on roofs, because if it was just that, we'd reach penetration or, saturation in a certain amount of time, and then everybody would be out of a job.
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. Installers install. If there's no installations, no jobs.
But they have to repair.
But they have to repair and replace.
Replace.
And so the question I would put to you is, repair and replace, is that going to take as many jobs as the original installation?
I don't know the answer to that definitively. Intuitively, you would think it would take less. And we know that currently that adds about 5,000 new jobs a year. At its peak, it was about 8,400. What will that look like in the future? I really can't say whether that'll be less, but we're on a 15% of all, 14% of all construction expenditures, and we're at this rate where we increase about 1% or 1.5% towards our renewable portfolio standard every year. And we also are making considerable progress on our energy efficiency portfolio standard per year. So one would think that our job growth is going to be at least consistent with what we've had so far.
When you talk about installing PV as probably the bulk of it, that construction, are you including utility scale PV farms as well?
No, and the reason why we cite that figure is because it's what we've been able to get a handle on the data. So what's happened, our Research and Economic Analysis Division for the state, run very ably by Eugene Tian, took a look at the permits, the building permits for PV installations, and was able to take from that enough information to be able to calculate the impact in terms of construction expenditures as well as the jobs impact. And if we had better data in the other sectors, we could actually compute better numbers. What we realize is that unless you actually are able to explain with credible data, it's hard to get your hands around what's actually occurring.
Sure.
We know there's all of this immense activity. We can see the increase efficiency. We can see the effectiveness of the renewable portfolio standard in achieving higher marks every year. We're at 23% statewide renewable energy, and we continue to pursue a 100% path by 2045. But it is, very difficult unless you have key metrics and you're able to track them and measure them for everyone to fully comprehend how we're making that progress.
Yeah.
This is a new area, so you're kind of breaking new ground, so to
We are.
speak. And how might you measure that, because it's so important? in terms of just getting funding or getting workforce development funds and training funds, if you can't say these are the areas that are growing, and being able to say this is where the jobs are going to be if we have the right workforce trained and competent in those areas. And I wonder whether DBED or working with Labor Department or Workforce Development Council with Leslie can start ferreting out how we might measure something like that.
Well, one of the newer initiatives has been to look at that workforce development picture and what are those new skills. I think you were trying to get at that earlier. Is this something that's going to be outside the scope of the traditional vocational aspects of it? And as we look at smart grid, I think Ray talked about the opportunities there and the fact that we now have a clear indication we're going to be able to achieve our objectives. Hawaiian Electric finally came out with their application for a $300 million plus rollout of advanced metering infrastructure. And part of that will require some highly technical new skilled labor.
Absolutely, and that's not PV installation.
No.
It's not renewable generation at all. It's the grid.
That's right.
We've been waiting for the grid. We've been waiting for Leslie too. Leslie Wilkins, how are you, Leslie?
I'm well, thank you. Aloha from Maui. I just wanted to confer with Mark and Sharon on the fact that this is an emerging area. It doesn't fit the traditional workforce analysis protocols. Green jobs, if you will, transcend across all sectors of the economy or in the visitor industry. It's a green job if you're a purchasing director and you're making decisions to choose more environmentally friendly products for the housekeeping department, for example, looking at energy efficiency. So I think as we look at skill set development, as building the pipeline to have a resident trained, skilled pipeline, advance our innovation sector, which we are all very much backing and seeing as opportunities for Hawaii. I think it comes down to STEM skills. We really have to make sure our students are critical thinkers, that they're staying in the math pipeline, they're pursuing engineering degrees in electrical, mechanical, environmental, they're learning programming and coding.
You think we can place all those people? I mean, that's really terrific. I mean, that's tech come true. The tech we've been waiting for since the days of George Ariyoshi come true. But where are we going to put them all, Leslie?
But we can't. First, it must transcend and it crosses all business and industry sectors. I think that's the key, is to see how pervasive it can and should be across all sectors.
Yes. Well, what about Maui? I mean, just looking at Maui, I know we are talking about statewide, but where are the jobs as you see them unfolding on Maui?
It's a very transition period for us in the economy. We've had two of the largest state announcements of layoffs. One in, with the closure of HCNS, and the last major large-scale crop production in sugar, as well as one of the major hotels is laying off hundreds of people to go to a more private condominium high-end. So we are having to absorb a lot of people to transition, retrain, entrepreneurism.
Okay, well, how do you do that? You have people, for example, from HCNS. They worked on effectively a plantation kind of business. And now you want to put them into, what is probably closer to a high-tech business, and they're not kids anymore, probably most of them. How do you ready them? How do you prepare them to join a new workforce for effectively a new industry with new skills, new technologies? That's not so easy. How would you propose to do that, Leslie?
It's not easy, and it takes a full community commitment. And I'm very pleased to say that our community has stepped up. Sugar is part of our heritage. It's very much culturally a part of what defines who we are. Many people's ancestry and heritage is in sugar. So we are committed as a community across every human service agency, the workforce development system, mayor's office, our legislators, and our federal team are really working in concert. So it's one-on-one. It has to be a one-on-one assessment, working with each displaced employee of HCNS to evaluate what are their skill sets, what are their interests, where they are in the career pathway, are they ready for retirement, are they ready for retraining, are they looking to move. There are many of the HNS workers have strong technical skills. They've come through strong. HNS has one of the most robust apprenticeship programs in the state. They've trained not only 60 journey workers every year in technical skills, not only for their operations, but the electric company, the county of Maui, Pearl Harbor.
Who's going to lead the charge, Leslie? Will it be the council, the Workforce Development Council? Will it be MECO? Will it be Mark and DBED? Who will it be?
Labor Department. Isn't the
Labor
Labor
Department?
Department
Yeah.
involved?
Doesn't have one person, one entity leading. It has to be a collaboration because everybody has a role to play. The makeup of the Workforce Development Council is the new law that governs workforce development, which has just gone into effect and has great changes, but great opportunities, is really bringing private sector to the table. The 51% of the council has to represent employers who are creating jobs, who have jobs, to inform the skill sets needed to help with the training and the operations of the workforce development system.
Who's going to pay for this?
Responsive. Pardon me?
Who's going to pay for it?
Well, we do get some federal funding. We have been pretty successful in going after grants, et cetera, for specific training for the various partners and nonprofits. So we have to come together, and the private sector itself is bearing some of the costs with the apprenticeship, et cetera. So it can't, there's not one silver bullet. If we don't tap all the sectors, federal, state, county, and private, we can't do this.
When do we start?
I think we are. We're very definitely starting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk on a micro level as to
Well, actually, I want to talk about it on a Mark level.
Mark, statewide.
A Mark level.
But well, how much money, Leslie, do you have from this innovation planning grant from Department of Labor? Is that U.S. Department of Labor, or you said you had funding for the training?
Well, the training, okay, so for the HCNS displaced workers, I think we've tapped into some rapid response funding, trade adjustment, et cetera, to try to serve their needs very much first. And looking forward, the U.S. Department of Labor formulaically gives the state of Hawaii funding, which goes to our State Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. Workforce Development Council's responsibility is to make sure that private sector's voice is there, helping to drive and allocate and hold accountable how the training programs that are being funded by the U.S. Department of Labor are being responsive to private sector needs, to actual jobs and future emerging jobs.
Mark, let me turn to you for a moment. Hold Leslie for a minute. Statewide, are there resources to pay for this training right now? Do you see resources coming down the pike? How much money will be necessary? Where will it go? And how will it be obtained other than through the Square building?
Yeah, so far this has been done, you mentioned unions before, and certainly with some of these other mostly federal programs, what you're doing is you're stimulating human entrepreneurial capital, and those are the inputs in the innovation economy. And in too many cases, this is actually occurring through either incubators, through technical assistance that's provided through those, like the Energy Accelerator. And it's not really coming from any particular program. When we're talking about these new companies that are coming up with brand new solutions. But the rest of it, the vocational activities have really been, I think, supported mostly by the trades.
Yeah, we see, actually, was it last year or 2 years ago? Before this administration, Dwight Takamine was the Department of Labor.
Yeah.
And you remember him, Leslie. And, and he organized a tour around all the trade unions that were involved or could have, were interested in being involved. And they were very excited about it.
Oh, great.
And I would venture to say that the unions are an important part of this program because this is a way that they can sustain new jobs, give careers, and that was one of the things they talked about, give careers to young people coming in with systematic training programs. It sounded like a school, it sounded like a high school or a college where they step up and get merit badges, you know, for one skill or another. We're gonna take a short break. This is Hawaii, the state of clean energy, if you hadn't noticed. Mark Glick is here in the studio from the State Energy Office, and Leslie Wilkins from MEDB and the Workforce Development Council under the Department of Labor, talking about, building a clean energy workforce, important. We'll be right back.
Aloha, namaskar, and hello. My name is Anu Hittel, and I host the show called Climate Change Beyond Outrage. We go beyond outrage to find solutions to climate problems facing people, nations, and the world. I hope you will join me here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We broadcast live from thinktechhawaii.com. Aloha and bye-bye.
Aloha, my name is Justine Espiritu, and I am the co-host of Hawaii Farmers Series. This is my co-host, Matthew Johnson, and we are live with you every Thursday at 4 p.m. at thinktechhawaii.com. And our show focuses on Hawaii's local food community. We feature not only the farmers that are producing our food, but we also feature the supporters and other folks involved in the community that are trying to promote local agriculture.
We're back, we're live. You knew we'd come back. Like MacArthur here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, building a clean energy workforce. You know, and during the break, which is always the best time, sorry you weren't here for that.
I know, that was pretty
stick
good.
to your television and see us closely. We're talking about, you know, exactly what is it? You know, because we talk in so, you know, it actually vague terms about exactly what is the industry. And as we go down the pike here, we learn more about what is the industry, what kind of companies, what kind of renewables are involved, what kind of technologies are involved, who is populating the landscape, who will populate the landscape going forward. It is changing, it will change, it needs definition and redefinition, and that's why we're asking you, Mark, to define it.
Well, it's a good thing that I have the definition from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. agency that's actually responsible for doing that. And, you know, in 2011 is the last year that we have full good figures of Hawaii's contribution to that. And it was 17,600 green jobs in Hawaii. Now, what are those? The Bureau of Labor Statistics defines that in 5 categories. Energy from renewable sources, energy efficiency, pollution and recycling, natural resources conservation, and environmental compliance, education, and training. So all of those comprise our green jobs in the state.
Forgive me, but some of them are green without being energy.
Yeah, well, those are green jobs. So the green energy jobs were 5,000 and I said at the high point in 2012, I believe it was 8,700 when we had that spike in the PV installations, but it's now again about 5,000, or the energy component pieces, out of that 17,600.
What about you, Leslie? What kind of jobs do you see in the energy industry, such as it exists or will exist, going down the pike in Maui?
Well, it has to be, as you said, it's an emerging field, and I think Hawaii has tried to hold ourselves out as a test bed for new clean energy, renewable innovations. As you open the show, we have such potential. We have really every platform for, and so entrepreneurship has to be the backbone. Have to really support and nurture critical thinking, help our entrepreneurs get support to put forward those innovations and test them here in our state and help us move forward to our 2045.
So what I get is entrepreneurship, and then I get installers of PV, and that's primarily rooftop PV right now. I think I get the idea that there's tech jobs here. You talked about engineering
smart grid
and
and
computers
engineers,
for the smart grid. So
There's-
call that a high-tech or information technology kind of job.
Absolutely. There's
Anybody have another category for me? I mean, to go into, the industry as we like to see it unfold. In other words, make me a 17-year-old kid. Make me a 16-year-old kid. My wife thinks I am a 16-year-old kid. Where do I focus my vocational, plans if I want to? And I want to get into energy. What do I go to school for? What do I expect in the market?
So,
I think go to school for electrical engineering,
Yep.
environmental mechanical engineering, coding, programming, developing your own mobile apps. Because, solar installation, you're right, will have a saturation point, but the technology is going to be continuing to change. And at the center of that is it's all computer generated. We're going to get more sophisticated with, new installations in the home. Our cars are, becoming hybrid or battery operated. Even in the automotive programs, in our career and technical education programs right now, those have to bring online hybrid and electric vehicle servicing. So that's, I think, where we put our children today.
And
Where-
Leslie, you said entrepreneurs. So what would be the skill sets that you would be training for to be an entrepreneur? I mean, is it you just kind of because you have an idea, you move into the business and you try to start a business, or how would you train for that?
So we're firm believers that the pipeline starts in elementary school, that otherwise you're retrofitting a workforce, which is not the most effective way. So entrepreneurism courses start in elementary school. We have modules in entrepreneurism in our STEM works and our Island Energy Inquiry. It's everything from idea and product development and scientific method to the basic finance and running a business with business skills and developing business plans, and that gets more sophisticated along the way. It's a menu of things. Obviously, Dawn is doing great things in the Energy Accelerator, startup weekends, pitching, the ability to try to find and connect funders with some of our entrepreneurs' ideas. We have to look at a whole menu. Again, I just come back.
Leslie, when you talk about entrepreneurs, and Sharon, when you talk about entrepreneurs, you're talking about entrepreneurs building companies that do not exist today.
So
Let me turn that around. And what about now? I'm not 16-year-old anymore. I'm 25. And I have been through electrical engineering, and I'm ready to make a living and have a family and buy a house and a nice electric car. Who is going to hire me right now? Is there a sufficient, what do you want to call it, employer? We talked about workforce. How about an employer force that will actually hire me? Or are you saying that I have to form my own company?
Well, I think that there's both, right? That you have people who are entrepreneurs and they need people to help them build or create what they're doing. And on the other hand, if you have good ideas and if you go through the kinds of programs that Leslie's talking about, starting young and learning how to do a business plan, you may already be doing it. There are some high school students who are already starting their own little company.
Name them.
I've heard
Let me
they
ask
have
a
been.
question, because I've kind of been listening and not talking. But, it seems like that, there's a huge space that we can try to cover. But have we had any really good results with narrowing it so that we can see what a good result looks like and what it can do for us?
What are you
I'm trying to
asking
think.
for?
Jobs?
A
In
good
terms-
result in terms of a
good-
job?
A good result about getting an education program going that feeds into a need in the energy world. You know, because we're talking in general terms about it, but we really are in an area that's very difficult to do because we don't have but
It's a moving
many-
target for
so
one
many
thing.
people. Yeah,
It's a new area.
and so I'm wondering, you know, are we trying to do something here that might work on the mainland, but it doesn't work here because it's a chicken and egg thing. You know, you've got to have an industry that needs some trained employees before you can get somebody to train employees for that industry, and it's
Mark wants to
So,
respond to that.
so Ray brings up an excellent point, and you know, basically the skills that we're talking about, and we've talked about how broad the fields are, but let's just talk about sort of one kind of group of disciplines. So the Electrochemical Society is now every 4 years coming to Hawaii, and they're bringing their major conference.
You're organizing that, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm
I
helping.
knew that.
Yeah.
That's really commendable.
And what's really fascinating, though, and they've basically, with the University of Hawaii, and Orion Law is the chair of this year's event. And this is an international thing. As of today, there's 4,200 abstracts for all of these intricate solutions for battery technology, for advanced inverters, for all of these really extraordinary things that are going to make the difference and solve the problems of tomorrow. Where they're being conducted is the real question. And yes, they're being conducted at research parks that have great, deep Department of Energy support at Lawrence Berkeley. They're being done, you know, at NREL in Colorado. But they're also being done in conjunction with universities. University of Hawaii is really working hard with the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute and with the Department of Engineering to also provide some of those solutions. So it will take time, I think. The fact is that we're small and that we're emerging, but because we do have the accelerator and we have utilities moving and making larger expenditures now in the infrastructure development, we do have a chance to get a handful of those developers to really look at that, and it does create, we do have to work very hard at building a critical mass so that we get more of those people. But having the conference here, as well as Verge Hawaii and you know the work that the events that Sharon puts on every year, bring the appropriate attention to this market.
Yeah, well, Leslie,
Yep.
what's my first step? I'm 25, I have an electrical engineering degree. I got it because I wanted to get into the energy industry. I have great enthusiasm about that. And I wake up one morning, okay, at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I call you and I say, Leslie, where do I go this morning to get my job? What do I do? What is your answer to me?
I'd love to get calls like that. So working with young people is what we do. So I'm going to call a network of people together that can customize some help. We're going to get that student or that 25-year-old graduate. We're going to get them into a one-stop. We're going to get them to register in HireNet and take a look at all the jobs that are available across the spectrum. We're going to find out what their specialization is. We're going to find out if they need shoring up with something. Do they want to get a boot camp in coding? Whatever they do to make them more marketable in a
You mean I'm not finished with my electrical engineering? I mean, isn't that enough?
career possible option.
Isn't
If
that, I
emerging
bring
state
you
of
a
an
degree from UH Manoa, and by the way, I got a 4.0 index to give you, and I have been extremely successful at Holmes Hall. I'm the top of my class, and I happen to come from Maui, Wailuku I come from. And I call you on the phone and I say, Leslie, my parents say I have to get out of the house now. I need a job. Who do I call? Where do I go? What do I do?
Well, we'll talk about the housing issue at another show.
Yes, we will.
Why I get out of the house is cost of housing. But it takes a village. There's not one particular stop. As I mentioned, there is a network of people dying to retain our best and brightest. So that exact scenario you described, we want to mitigate that brain drain. We want to keep that very dedicated, very potential, and has their roots here in Wailuku and Maui. I want to try to keep them. And I promise you, between about a half a dozen agencies, the workforce development, we will work very hard to try to place them.
Okay.
That's the beauty of living in a small community, in a small state.
I got it. Let's digest that for 1 minute. We'll
Maybe
take
they
a
could have
short
school.
break,
Short
and then we're going to continue on to the conclusion of this discussion, okay? This is Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We're building a workforce, an energy workforce, with Mark Glick and Leslie Wilkins. We'll take a minute break, and then Ray Starling and Sharon Moriwaki and me will be all back.
Aloha, my name is Carl Campagna. I'm the host of Think Tech Hawaii's Education Movers, Shakers, and Reformers. You can see our show every Wednesday at noon at 12 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com, as well as visiting YouTube and finding the link for the show there. The show is also aired on OC16. We look forward to seeing you on the show. We have many wonderful guests, including Joan Husted, Corey Rosenlee, where we talk about the very important issues of education for our keiki. We look forward to seeing you there. Mahalo.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on Think Tech Hawaii. I hope that you will tune in and watch the show. It is inspiring and uplifting and educational also. We talk with artists of all different ilk. We talk with them about what they do, how they do it, and most importantly, most dear to my heart, why they do it. And it never ceases to be fascinating when you get the answer to that question. I hope you'll join us on Center Stage, 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoons. Aloha.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here. We're going to close this program now with final comments. I guess we'll take Leslie first, since you're further away. Leslie, what would you leave with the people on this? What message do you think this show ought to provide to the people of Hawaii about the opportunities and possibilities of being involved in a clean energy workforce and how we're going to do that?
Well, clearly it is our future. There's no other state in the nation that is more reliant on the fact that we need to come together and not be reliant on fossil fuel and meet those. And it's our young people that are the home creative thinking and innovations that will get us there. We all have to come together. There's not one single entity. There's not one single agency. There's not one single education pipeline that will get us there. It has to be multidisciplinary. It has to be multi-agency. It has to be public-private. It has to be federal and local.
Got it. Thank you, Leslie. Leslie Wilkins, MEDB and the Workforce Council. Mark, what would you leave the people with?
Well, continue to listen. If you're interested in these subjects, continue to listen to this show. Come and do your homework on what the job opportunities are and how you could directly be involved or your children could be involved. Come out to Verge Hawaii, June 21st through 23rd at the Hilton Hawaiian Village. And pay attention to look at our website, go to the Energy Policy Forum, and try to find out more about this emerging industry. We'll continue to have more information all the time about these opportunities and what you ought to be able to do in the future to support this energy transformation.
And we'll have Mark back again to tell
well
us.
Well done,
as
we'll have
we
you
start
back again. This is
moving
an ongoing
forward.
issue.
Yes. And
we need to
Leslie.
know how it goes. Ray, comment, last comment?
Want to be inspired? Go look at the solarimpulse.com. I'm serious. That is the future,
phenomenal.
and it's here now. We don't have to wait for it.
I just wanted to add, if you want to be inspired, this weekend at the Wailea Marriott, we will have 600 students, very bright STEM students at the Hawaii STEM Conference, who have done amazing projects, many of them in clean energy, energy efficiency.
Well, as usual, Maui does great work.
This is statewide.
It's Mark Glick
And-
Mark Glick is the administrator of the State Energy Office. Leslie Wilkins is with MEDB and the Workforce Council. And we've had Ray Starling and co-host Sharon Moriwaki on this show. We'll do some more of this in the weeks to follow.
And Leslie's going to bring some of those students or the teachers on the last show on the future of the workforce.
Aloha.
Aloha, thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you,
Aloha.
everybody.